We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including plenty more offseason trade conversations around teams like the Montreal Canadiens, the Boston Bruins, Seattle Kraken, New Jersey Devils, and the LA Kings. Plus, we have another signing today with the Colorado Avalanche to confirm, plus one of the top picks from the 2025 NHL Draft has signed their entry-level contract, and we also have big expansion news from the East Coast Hockey League, as well as another NHL player making a long-awaited return from the Player Assistance Program. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about here today, some great news stories and some trade talk as well. I want to kick the video off with some really good positive news that we received today from the NHL and the NHLPA on Utah Mammoth goaltender Connor Ingram. In case you're not aware or forgot, Ingram entered the Player Assistance Program approximately 5 months ago and has now been fully cleared and released from that program, taking some time to focus on mental health. We know Connor Ingram has been pretty open with things that he struggled with in the past, so this is great to see. He's a really pretty solid goalie in my opinion, but like, anybody really, there are sometimes things off the ice that people need to deal with. Like, there's lots of things in life that can be quite challenging for people, and with Connor Ingram, he's been pretty vocal and outspoken about some of his struggles as well, and going through this Player Assistance Program for a long stretch, like 5 months. It's great to see that he's been obviously made significant improvements and has been cleared to resume play. We're not too far away from NHL training camps getting started, so he should be able to resume his career, get back between the pipes, and hopefully continue helping the Utah Mammoth for the upcoming 25-26 season. So that's a real great positive story and success there on Connor Ingram. Now, another player as well that I've seen a lot of, I guess you could say, surprise, shock, confusion, getting a PTO the other day was Milan Lucic with the St. Louis Blues. A lot of people confused as to why would St. Louis bring Lucic in. What's the connection? This doesn't make sense. I've seen lots of comments around that. Just wanted to add a little context that I honestly think that a driving force here behind the Lucic PTO with the St. Louis Blues is the connection is Claude Julien. We got to remember, Claude Julien's an assistant coach on the Blues bench. He coached Lucic a lot during his prime years with the Boston Bruins. Probably knows him as a coach better than most guys around the league. And he knows what he's been through. He knows what he's capable of. So I honestly think that Julien was likely I can't say this with certainty, but I just, I've seen a lot of people confused, and oftentimes when you see things that maybe surprise you, or you're like, oh, why? I wonder why, how did that end up? And usually if you think about it or you dig deep enough, you'll find a connection. The world of professional hockey might seem big at times, but really it's really not. It's really kind of small and condensed, and a lot of these guys have been around the game a long time. You know lots of people, and there's always a connection somewhere, and generally there's a lot of things that happen because of those connections, and I really think that's why the Blues gave him a chance. I'm sure they relied heavily on input from their assistant coach and veteran Claude Julien, but that's just my opinion on that matter. I just seen so many comments on it, so I wanted to quickly add some context to what I believe took place there. We also got some big news today on the East Coast Hockey League. Now, of course, the East Coast League is basically 2 tiers down from the NHL. So we have the NHL, then there's the American Hockey League, which is the main affiliate feeder league, and then you've got the East Coast League, which is another step down. They've announced today that they are expanding to their 32nd franchise, so they'll be the same size as the NHL, so that every NHL team, if they wanted to be able to have their own distinct affiliate, will be able to do so. The new franchise will kick off in 27-28, so it's going to be a little bit. They're going to be based out of Augusta, Georgia, and this franchise is actually going to be owned by former NFL quarterback Tim Tebow and David Hodges, his business partner. So yeah, it's good news to see the East Coast League kind of keeping up with the NHL and making sure there's affiliates to go around there for all of those teams. I know some teams might struggle with where to have their prospects play if they don't have multiple affiliate lower level teams. I know we've seen some teams like the Hurricanes, for example, when they've been in transition and whatnot, it can be challenging. And the other thing too is you want your prospects and your players to be able to play together and not have to loan them out to all these different teams and have them spread out, because a lot of these players, they may play together, develop chemistry, they may end up making it to the big level together, and that's important to see. And it's also a nightmare to keep an eye on it if you have players all over the place with all these different franchises too. So nice to see the East Coast League expanding, and hopefully everything works out well with that. Speaking of the Carolina Hurricanes, as I use them as an example there, recently retired veteran player Jesper, who had to retire due to injuries, is now back in the fold with the Hurricanes, this time in an off-ice role. The Carolina Hurricanes have hired him as a player development coach. So nice to see him stick around with the game and still be able to contribute with the Carolina Hurricanes in that aspect. Now, yesterday we got word from Puckpedia that Victor Olofsson was one of the top UFAs that was still on the market, was expected to sign a one-year contract, and they had suggested that the Avalanche were the most likely landing spot based on their sources, and that turned out to be very true and accurate, with the Avalanche today announcing that contract. Although I believe, based on, or maybe it's just my misunderstanding, I thought it was going to be a 1 year, $1 million deal, but it's actually not. They signed Victor Olofsson to 1 year at $1.575 million, really, which is really not too bad. He did score 15 goals last year, put up 29 points in 56 games with Vegas. Now 30 years old. Played with the Sabres for quite a long time. So we will see how things work out there. But the Avalanche definitely had a need for another top 9 forward. So hopefully Olofsson can make the most of that and see what he can do this year to hopefully extend his career. But if you're looking at the Avalanche lineup, there's definitely a need there and makes a lot of sense. So hopefully things work out. And the Nashville Predators today confirmed that they've signed their top pick from the 25 NHL draft, number 5 overall. Brady Martin has inked his 3-year entry-level contract. Of course, being such a high pick, he gets the best of the best here. His cap hit will be $975,000, and of course, he's lots of the bonuses that rookies are eligible for built in. $1 million in A bonuses, $500K in B bonuses. So there's an extra $1.5 million there that he can earn throughout the contract. So that's a little bit more lucrative. The high picks all typically get that type of contract structure. That's nothing too surprising there. Now on to some rumors around the NHL. We'll start with some updates from Michael Russo. This one surprised me. Of course, on the DFL Rundown, he's been filling in as a guest host ever since the departure from Frank Seravalli from that outlet, pairing up with Jason Gregor. They've been putting out podcasts in the past week, kind of previewing they went division by division and kind of talking about each team, where they see them kind of fitting, if they, who they feel is going to be playoff teams, who improved, who didn't, that kind of stuff. And looking at the Pacific Division, one of the things that they talked about with LA was the future of Brent Clark, which surprised me here. We've seen Ken Holland, of course, become the new GM of the LA Kings this offseason, and ended up trading Jordan Spence to Ottawa in a trade that got him a couple of mid-round picks. It wasn't really a huge return by any means, but obviously there was a lot of debate last year between Clark and Spence, probably not both being in the lineup at the same time. And essentially when the Spence trade took place, a lot of us were led to believe that it was kind of to give Clark a little bit more of an opportunity, in that, if they're going to give Clark the opportunity in LA, that was going to probably reduce the opportunity for Spence. So they send him somewhere else where he might get more of an opportunity, essentially. But now Russo was hearing through different points of the offseason that Ken Holland was also considering moving Brent Clark as well. Now, obviously, they haven't done it, and it sounds at this point he said that Holland is going to probably hold off on that for right now, maybe see him play a little bit more, see how the season starts before they make that decision. But I found this quite surprising, and to be honest, for Kings fans, a little bit alarming. They were a team that not long ago, looking back 5-6 years ago, like they really started to rebuild. And I really thought it was going to be more of a draft and develop type of rebuild, but it really didn't turn into that. If you look at their lineup, I mean, they obviously had a few top-notch veterans that stuck around, like Kopitar and Doughty specifically. And they already had a couple of, players that were a little bit youngerish at the time that were kind of up and coming, working their way up, like Kempe comes to mind, for example. Mikey Anderson became a mainstay on the blue line. But a lot of the other picks, they've got a lot of picks that never materialize into regular NHL players, or at least not with their organization. They moved Gabe Vilardi. Alex Turcotte has not. I mean, for such a high pick, a lot of people thought Turcotte would be a solid top 6 guy. That's never happened. He's just kind of starting to become a fourth line guy now. Jordan Spence just got moved, Akil Thomas. A lot of these guys, it's not that they're not good players, but they haven't been the impact players that you think. Quentin Byfield has been a good player for them as well, but even him at second overall, I'm a little surprised, to be honest, that he hasn't been more impactful than what he has been, but I still think they believe in him to become the future number 1 center of that team. And the belief is that this is going to be the last year for Kopitar. So I think that they really need to see a big jump out of his game, and with the hopes that he can play in that spot maybe as early as next year on a regular basis, which I'm curious to see how this is going to go. But a lot of their young players just haven't panned out. And they became a playoff team after some time rebuilding, and they obviously haven't gotten over the hump to win the first round. They've played the Oilers a number of years in a row and lost all of those series, but a lot of the young players, like I said, haven't worked out or been moved. And with Ken Holland coming in, he seems to be very much veteran trusting, veteran happy, bringing in guys like Dumoulin and CC right away, moving out Spence, and now we're hearing all this talk about maybe Clark could go too. It's like, I just don't know what they're doing. I don't understand how, this is for me is a problem with this organization if they're not getting these young players to fully develop, because a lot of them are drafted with a lot of pedigree. It's just for that many of them not to work out, to me, just is a major red flag and a concern. And I do wonder, long term here in the next couple of years, as some of these veteran guys, like as Kopitar finishes up this year, then Doughty's going to be another year older. How much longer does he play for? Kempe's coming up on a new contract. Does he stick around? Just makes you wonder, with a couple of changes here, could LA take a big step back? Maybe not right away, but maybe in a year or two, right? I don't know. Just kind of concerning that Clark's name is really even out there and seriously being moved. But I would say, depending on how things start for the season, if Clark's game is a little rough or you start seeing him in and out of the lineup, wouldn't be shocking to see Ken Holland, after what we've heard this offseason now, maybe consider trading him too. There'll be lots of interest. There's no doubt. He is a dynamic, in my opinion, young defenseman. Obviously, you need to work on the deep part of his game, but the offensive side is pretty strong. Now, one rumor that we came about today as well from Seattle regarding Jared McCann. We've heard a lot about his name here recently. The most recent report suggested the Montreal Canadiens were an interested party to acquire him. New article from Rob Simpson, who's writing for Seattle Hockey Insider, says that he's been told that by I guess what he's referring to as a good source within the Kraken, that at least one team, and he names that to be the Devils, have been told that McCann is not available for trade, and that his referencing another writer from RG.org saying that if he were to be moved, that it would take a significant offer to make it happen. Now, from New Jersey side of things, you're probably looking at either one of their top young D, like Nemec or Casey, or maybe Dawson Mercer in a really good prospect, something along those lines, maybe a first rounder and one of those guys. It's going to take a significant offer to prime McCann out of Seattle, according to this new information that Simpson's posting here. Obviously, he's been a productive player for them and been a top scorer for them. But given the fact that the team, I don't care personally, the way I look at it is he's on a contract that's not far from being over. So, near the end of the contract, yes, he's been a productive player, but the team is nowhere near contending. The team has not been good. The team has gradually been just kind of worse and worse here the last 2-3 years since they had a brief amount of playoff success in year 2 of the franchise. Why not consider moving this guy? Now, I understand you want a good return for him, and I get that, but, honestly, I don't know. A little bit surprised to hear that. Not shocked, though, that the Devils would be a team that would have inquired on him as well. I can see how they would feel that he would make sense for them. And I know Dawson Mercer is also another name, too, to watch. If the Devils do make a move, that could be a name to watch. I know that he hasn't been the most consistent, and I think they sometimes wonder where he fits. I think kind of reminds me of the situation with Fabian Zetterlund a few years ago. They ended up moving him. Same with Zacha as well. Guys that were decent players. They struggle to find where they fit in long term, and is it the right match for them, and they ended up moving on from a few of those other guys. Mercer could end up being one of those guys as well. Kind of hard to say, but ultimately, New Jersey definitely looking for some help. Of course, they still need to sign Luke Hughes. We know that there's a possibility they need to clear some money to make that happen. A lot of people wondering about the future of Dougie Hamilton. I don't know. We haven't really heard enough to think that that's really like a likely scenario here real soon. But it's been out there in the rumor mill. But I wonder if they could move another guy. Could Mercer be a player that goes? We'll have to see. But clearly McCann is a player that maybe Seattle, if this is accurate, doesn't really want to move and is only going to do it if they get blown away with an offer. But we'll see. Now, Jack Roslovic's another name out there in the UFA market as well. We've heard him connected to a few teams. We talked yesterday that reports from Thomas Durant said that the Canucks' interest had cooled and that they probably weren't going there. We also heard that the former team of the Hurricanes was not for sure a deal that wasn't not going to happen, like it wasn't, the door's not closed. There's also some talk about another former team that he briefly played with the Rangers, that he could end up back there. And I also wondered as well, because we're going to talk about Montreal here, but Montreal's been obviously heavy in the rumor mill about a number 2 center. And could Roslovic maybe be that guy? It seems pretty likely from all we've heard that Kirby Dach will be late starting of the season. So do they just go with what they have internally and elevate everybody and hope that it's good enough to kind of get through a patch of time until Doc gets back and they can try him out? Or do they go another route and sign a guy like Roslovic who, to me, it's like a low risk, especially if you only sign him for 1 year. He could maybe be a good fill-in. And when Doc comes back, you can kind of see how he does. And then long-term, maybe Roslovic doesn't stick around if Doc works out, but you kind of have some insurance there. Roslovic has been a teammate of Patrick Laine before as well. And we know that Laine, like in my own opinion, and others that have talked about it as well, like you do wonder what the long-term fit, where does Laine fit on this team long-term? And, having a centerman that he can really connect with, I think will be important to his long-term success. And not saying for sure that Roslovic would be that guy, but they've been teammates. They know each other, familiarity. It just could be something that might work. I wonder if it's something they will look at. There hasn't really been mention of them. That's just my own kind of gut feeling, wondering if it could be a scenario that we see. But another name, a couple names actually to watch, according to Jimmy Murphy of RG.org and making a recent appearance here in the Sick Podcast, suggesting that Montreal turn to Boston and take a look at Pavel Zacha as a real potential option for their center needs. Obviously, we've heard about Zacha and Casey Middlestat out of Boston, both being available for the right deal. We've also heard Jonas Korpisalo's name has been popping in and out of the rumor mill throughout the offseason as well. Hard to say about him. I don't think Montreal would have anything to do with a goaltending trade with Boston, but Zacha and or Middlestat does possibly make sense. I think Zacha might even make more sense than Middlestat would for Montreal. Both names have been out there. I think it's fair to say that the Bruins will move either or both for the right trade. Like I said, and Murphy suggests that even though they've mostly been pretty heated rivals over the years, the rivalry is not quite anywhere near what it was, in the 70s, 80s, 90s lately. They haven't met in the playoffs in a long time, and both teams haven't really been at the top of their game at the same time for a little while either. So kind of, the rivalry's not what it once was, but it's still rare to see long-term division rivals and league rivals like them make trades. It's just not real common, but Zacha could be a name to watch. Like I said, he's been in the rumor mill for an extended time. We know the Bruins are going to probably be I don't know what to call them. I mean, they pretty well bottomed out last year. I don't see them getting a whole lot better this year. I think we're going to see another year of kind of downward trending before we might see a rebound the year after, perhaps. But ultimately, depending on what they can get out of Montreal for one of these players like Zacha, I do see how it does make sense. There could be a fit there. But ultimately, the Habs have a lot of options. I wonder what they're going to do. They don't seem to be anybody kind of big hurry, but I do think that they'll probably wait. At this point, September is not far off, which we know Carey Price contract will likely be traded sometime in early September to give them the cap flexibility that they need. And then that's probably when we would see the next phase of that. It'll be shortly after that happens. It gives them the more options, right? So Zacha very well does make sense that it could be a name that they watch. So let me know your thoughts on all the options and rumors and news that we talked about here today. Down in the comments, we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.